Last night, 4.10 hit the PTU and brought with it the new Siege of Orison mission as well as instancing. It also had a couple of other bits and bobs like the Arlington rifle as well as the super heavy combat armor. I played about 3 hours and had a relatively good session, although from my understanding the servers have slowly degraded, which we'll talk about a little later. First off, let's start with my experience with instancing. So to talk about instancing, we are going to have to talk a little bit about the start of Siege of Orison. In order to begin the mission, you have to go to a tower and go to the very top and get into a shuttle. Now originally, because Siege of Orison is actually a mission that existed in Star Citizen like 4 years ago before it's been repurposed for instancing now, originally this shuttle would just bring you straight to Siege of Orison, but this time it actually brings you to a lobby instead. This is your last chance to group up with people or, meet with friends. Once you go into the elevator, you'll be greeted with a green force field, which you step through, and you and your party members are now in your own instance. You'll see a standby door on the other side, which I assume is the server spinning up your own instance, and once that door goes down, you can then safely enter and go into your instance of Siege of Orison, which we'll talk about in a little bit. When I tried to follow someone into their own instance who I wasn't party with, it gave me a denied red warning and then just teleported me back out. Overall, yeah, it worked pretty smoothly. The instance does save. When I died and had to come back, all of the NPCs that I had killed were still dead and my stuff was still there. There was one instance where the standby door did return and the shuttle reset, but when I actually got back to the platform of Siege, all the enemies were still dead and my stuff was still there. So I don't know how long this persists. I played for about 3 hours, dying here and there, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the video of why that was. The instancing isn't really working now from my understanding. The standby door simply just doesn't go down. You can actually glitch through the standby door, which from my understanding, everything just continues to work from normal, but obviously I haven't had an additional 3 hours to test that, so I guess take that with a grain of salt. Also, a weird thing about instancing is that the lobby seems to be where it deposits all the players' dead bodies. There is just a field of corpses and random player items, random subscriber items just strewn all over the place. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what that's about. So why I said that it's a mixed bag in the title is because the instancing does seem to work, but even after a couple hours of the server being up, it seems like things are starting to degrade and there's becoming a serious problem. So it's yet to be seen if the instancing itself has serious problems or if it's just, getting into the instancing, if it's just the bodies appearing. This is why I'm cautious because there are already problems only a couple of hours in. Now, this is the first build, so we'll have to see how things go, but it does seem a bit iffy right now. So let's talk about Siege itself. I quite liked it. Now, I used the new Arlington rifle as well as an FS9. The new Arlington rifle felt pretty nice. It had, I think, about 20 shots in it, and I brought plenty of spare ammunition. It's good for about mid-range. I did struggle whenever there were NPCs a bit farther out, and if they were a little too close, I often had a problem where it is a lever action, so if you have multiple NPCs in a group, it's usually not too good for that. But overall, I enjoyed using it. So let's talk about Siege itself. They have definitely streamlined it down. As I mentioned before, Siege has existed about, I think, like 4 years ago or so, and it used to be these huge open platforms that you could just kind of traverse across. It's definitely been tightly condensed down, and you have a much clearer direction of where you're supposed to be. There's lots of mini objectives and mini encounters. For example, as you get closer to the tower, which is your first real big objective, there's actually like a bunch of snipers that you get warned about that do begin to snipe at you. There's also a little boss battle you have to go through. It's really cool. It was something that I felt the original Siege needed, is that there was just a bunch of NPCs scattered everywhere and no real cohesion, where this feels like it's actually planned. I also had many objectives, so when I killed the boss, I got a key card, and I was able to open up a box of loot, which I'll just mention now, I think loot is something that Star Citizen still really struggles with. There was nothing inside of the boxes that really excited me. There was some council script, which I can turn in for Wicklow. But overall, I think that CIG, I don't know what exactly they want to do because I'm not sure if they want to give crafted items because then that would take away from players, and it feels weird to give ore. This is one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of the way they did the crafting, because everything is just materials. There's because just giving ore is reward. It feels really weird, but Also, at the same time, crafting components are probably one of the most valuable rewards you could get right now. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, like blueprints could be something they could do in the future, but I think they do need to figure out what exactly you can reward players with, because killing the boss, getting this extra loot room, and then going into it, it felt underwhelming to me. But overall, I really liked it. The NPCs were actually using grenades, which I haven't seen that often. I haven't really played a lot of the newer content like Rock Breaker, so I don't know if that's the standard, but I thought that was pretty cool. There's also a lot of cool special effects going on. There's a lot of artillery that's mentioned, and parts of the platforms are actually getting bombed. You can't really go past them. You have to use alternative routes. At night, you can see there's actually different ships flying around and fighting. You just see their particles, and I'm assuming it's just their particles. I really hope CIG isn't actually spawning a bunch of just random ships you can't even see, and it's just their particles. But it's really pretty at night because you can see all the artillery fire going off. It's very cinematic. So the final thing about it is that there are a lot of enemies in Siege, a lot of enemies. I spent about 40 minutes at a certain section. There's a room right before the boss that's full of tripwires, and I killed about like 5 people, and then like 5 more showed up, and then another 5 more showed up, and then another 5 more showed up, and this kept going on for about 40 minutes. And I think that either there was a bug. From my understanding, NPCs aren't supposed to spawn. They're just supposed to be here, and then as you kill them, they just die, and then, you continue on with the platform. So either they were spawning, or there was just so many NPCs that it took me 40 minutes to kill them all. So I wandered around the platform. It was basically empty after those 40 minutes, so I think that everyone just kind of came to my location and just died, which was fine. I know that this is supposed to be for up to 4 players, but there's a small part of me that thinks that either maybe the loot should be a little better, or maybe there should be something that scales down the number of NPCs, because at a certain point, it's not really a challenge, it's just you're kind of killing people, and it's just kind of a time waster, at a certain point. Additionally, once you've actually cleared out to the first tower, I have noticed there are checkpoints in terms of clinics, so you can set your regeneration. These aren't currently working, but from my understanding, these are supposed to serve as checkpoints. So hopefully in future patches and when it goes to live, these clinics will actually be working, because it does take like 15 minutes once you wake up from the hospital to actually get back to the instance and then run all the way through everything that you just killed. So having those checkpoints would be very nice. I got up to the upper end of the tower on the first island and then died and then didn't respawn at the checkpoint and decided that was probably enough for one night. So overall, I really like the new Siege of Orison. I like the mini objectives. I like the encounters. I hope we see more of that in the future. Again, I do think loot needs to be a bigger concern for CIG, but that's a wider discussion. I'm probably not going to do more of Siege of Orison. I've heard that there are really cool encounters coming up, including maybe dealing with a mech or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I'll probably leave that for live to play with friends, and maybe even do one of the roleplay videos. So yeah, that's Siege. But there's some problems. And these aren't really problems with Siege itself, but a problem with Star Citizen. And that the FPS, not the frames per second, but the actual first-person shooter aspect of Star Citizen feels so clunky. I know that people have ranted about this before, but this mission really shows it off how clunky it is. Basically, all of my deaths weren't because of a skill issue. It was because something was desynced. It's really hard to shoot an NPC when they're in front of you, and then suddenly they just teleport behind you. That doesn't feel good. And also, if I'm trying to heal myself, stab myself with a med pen, and an NPC comes around a corner, and I hit the button on my keyboard to switch to my gun, and then nothing happens, and I hit it again, and nothing happens, and I hit it again, and I pull it out, and then the NPC has killed me. That feels so awful. It also feels really bad when you've just reloaded your gun, and you fire at the NPC, and then the gun decides that it's actually not reloaded. That also feels really good. So although I really liked the idea of Siege of Orison, I actually didn't have a whole lot of fun playing Siege of Orison. That might not have just come across in my review, because there were moments I enjoyed of it, but I didn't enjoy the experience. And it wasn't because of Siege, which is why I'm mentioning it now at the end instead of during the Siege section. It was because the combat experience is so clunky. Like, for something that the game caters to so strongly, it is kind of ridiculous how clunky it is. Not being able to switch to guns, not being able to switch between med pens, not being able to reload, literally sometimes holding left trigger and nothing happening. All of those things make the experience feel so much worse. And I don't know what they're going to do, but they need to figure it out because it's not acceptable. It does not feel fun to play an FPS-based event with so much of the FPS experience feeling clunky and not feeling fun to actually play. So yeah, overall, I am looking forward to this update, but the instancing side of it is giving me concern. I like the idea of Siege of Orison, but the FPS clunkiness is just holding the entire game, and especially something like an FPS-focused event, it's holding it back. So we'll have to see. I'll keep you guys updated. I probably won't play a whole lot more of Siege because I do want to wait for it to come to live and experience it then with friends and stuff like that. But we'll just have to see how the patches go. And if I feel I have a radical change of opinion, either, I play instancing a bunch and it goes really well, or we're getting close to the deadline and it's going really badly, I might make another video. So overall, if you stuck around this long to the very end of the video and you feel like I deserve it, please give me a like and a subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.